Welcome to today's programming tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build on what we did last lesson by styling your web page. First things first, we need to open our old projects. I've got my projects in this folder, and if I go inside it and I click on my .html file, it'll open in my websites. Today we're going to learn how to make this look a little bit nicer, because the image is way too big, and the text could also be upgraded. Let's open up the code. I'll first open up Visual Studio Code. Now, if you are working straight off last week's project, you will find that your project is already loaded. If it's not loaded, we will close this little tab, and what we're going to do is click on File and Open Folder. We're not going to open the file because we might want to work with more than one file inside that folder. By opening the folder, we can create what's called a workspace. If I click on the folder and I select it, you can now see I've got the folder over here, and here is my website file, which I can click on. Here is the code from last week's lesson. Well, I built on it a little bit. We've still got our header tag that opens and closes. We've got our paragraph tag, and we've got these new little BR tags which stand for break line. This will create a space between your sentences. I'll use one here to keep this sentence right underneath this sentence, and I'll use two over here to put this sentence 2 spaces below this sentence. You can see this over here, where this sentence is right below this sentence, and this sentence is 2 spaces below this sentence. That's what the BR tags are for. They're written very similarly to how you created the image tags in the last lesson. Now, to start styling our websites, there are 2 things we need to look at: inline styling and using style tags. Let's look at inline styling to style the H1 tag. Inline styling basically means that we are going to put the styling directly inside the tag. For this example, I'm going to go just inside the tag, right next to the arrow, and I'm going to type in the word style. I'm going to make the style equal to something in speech marks. This is similar to how we did the source for the image. Now, what are we going to style? We're going to be styling in a language called CSS, which stands for Cascading Stylesheets. It's written differently to how we write all of the tags over here. So think of it as a completely new language. To write this language, it is really simple. We start with a property that we want to change, a colon, the value we want to change it to, and a semicolon. And we can do this as many times as we want. Let's now take a closer look at this. Let's say I want to change the color of Fox Facts to a different one. I'll change the property to color. Keep in mind this is using American spelling without the U. Colon, and the value I want to change it to is red. If I save my website and I go back to my main website and refresh it, you'll see it's now red. This is how inline styling works, and you can do this for any tag that we have. However, this is a very unorganized way of doing things. Another way of doing this is using style tags. Let's create style tags. We can do this anywhere in our documents, but because the styling is similar to the information of the website, I'm going to put them inside the head. We're going to start with a style tag, and we're going to have a closing style tag. Everything inside here will be CSS. You'll see if I write H1 over here, it's no longer HTML code. Everything goes wrong. So everything inside these style tags is known as CSS code. Now, I can't just write color red here, because my program won't know what it is that I want to color in red. First and foremost, I have to tell the program where or which tag I want to color. In this case, if I remove this styling over here, I want to change the H1 tag. To do this, I will type H1 by itself, and then I'll use an open and close curly brackets to specify what properties that h1 tag has. Think of these two brackets like a file or a folder. It contains all the properties that I want to put on my h1 tag. And it doesn't matter how you write these. You can have this right next to it, you can have it written all in one line, but I prefer to have it right underneath the h1 tag. Now, if I put color is blue here, we'll do blue instead of red to see the change. If I save it, it changes the h1 tag to blue. But I've got another problem. What if I have two h1 tags? Let's create another one underneath it and call this one subtitle. If I go back to my program, you'll see it's also blue. But what if I want this one to be in red? Well, I can do this by giving each of my tags a name. To give my tags a name, I would go next to the one over here, like I did before when we were doing the inline styling, and I would give it an ID. Think of this like the IDs you use to cross the border. It has all your personal information, such as your name. So we're going to give an ID to my h1 tag, and this only applies to this h1 tag. Now, I'm going to make that equal something. You can call this tag whatever name you want. Let's call this tag something appropriate. Title. And I'll copy and paste this ID and put it in my second one, and I'll call this one subtitle. This will affect anything. If I go back to my web page and I refresh it, nothing happens. Keep in mind, every time I go to my web page, I'm saving by pressing Ctrl S. Always make sure you save, and always make sure that this is an X and not a circle. So, next up, how can I change this to reference my title? It's really simple. When referencing an ID tag, or when you want to call an ID tag, you put a hashtag instead of writing it by itself. So if I put hashtag title, now my program knows to look for a tag that has the name title. I save this and I go back. You can see that only the one that has the name title is affected. You have to be careful and always put these hashtags when you're referencing a name. If I just put title there, the program will look for all my title tags and change those ones. I want to make sure it's got a hashtag so my program knows it's looking for the name title and not the tag title. Now, I can create another one for subtitle using that hashtag, and let's make the color red. There you go. We now have blue and we have red just by changing these properties. I can change other properties as well. For example, I can change the font size of a title to 24 pixels. Pixels is a size or unit of measurement that we use. If I save this and I go back, you'll see it get a little marginally smaller. Now, if I wanted to make sure that the text and the paragraph are all in the center of the screen, or I want to make sure the H1 is more in the center of the screen, I can use something called a margin. A margin detects this, or tells you the space that is around something. So at the moment, everything will have a margin of 0. They will have no empty space around it. Let's give a left margin to my title. If I give this a margin left of 50 pixels, let's see what happens. As you can see, my title moved to the right by 50 pixels because there is now a 50 pixel space between the corner of my screen or the side of my screen to the tag. I can also do some unique things. For example, I can set the width and the height of the title. So if I set the width to 800 pixels, you'll see nothing really changes. But let's put a background color to my title. I'll give it the background color of green. Now you can see how big the H1 tag is. If I increase the size to 1000, you'll see it grows bigger. Now what I can do is I can set a special margin for this tag. I can give it a margin 0 auto. What this will do, and you must have a width for this to work, this margin 0 auto will automatically put your title in the middle of the screen. There you go. And if I want the text to be in the center, I can use a special one called text align center. And that will put the text in the center of my box. I can do that with any tag. For example, if I want to do all the P tags in the center, I will do P. To get all the P tags, I will give it a width of 1000 pixels like I did with my title, and I will give a margin of a 0 auto, and I will text align it to the center. There we go. Keep in mind that margin auto affects the box or the tag that is around the text. You'll always have an invisible box around every single tag that you create. Text align will put all the text inside the box in the middle. So margin 0 auto will put the box in the middle of the screen, and text align center will put the text inside the box in the middle of the box. I can also resize my image. Let's go down to my image and let's give it a title. I'll give it an ID and I'll call it image, or better yet, let's call it Fox image. If I go back up to my style, I can give it a hashtag, Fox image, and now I can change the size. I can give it a width of 500 pixels, a height of 500 pixels, and you'll see it's now smaller. Keep in mind that you have to keep the aspect ratio correct, the width and height I mean, to keep the image from squishing. If I lower the height a bit, let's say to 400 pixels, you'll see it's much better. I can use margin to control where it is on the screen. Now you might have seen me order these in a certain way. For example, everything that affects the text I've been putting at the top, the margin I put next, followed by the width, followed by the background color. That does not matter at all. You can have these in any order you want. But it's always a good idea to keep organized by keeping the same things in the same order so that it is easy to read. That being said, if you were to have this like this, it wouldn't affect the program, as you can see. Lastly, how do you know what all these properties are or what all these properties do? For example, let's say that I wanted to change the background color of subtitle, but I didn't know what the command was. I can do that by searching like I did last lesson with W3 schools. If I type in my search CSS background color, you'll see I get a W3 schools link like last week. Keep in mind, like last week, instead of putting HTML here, we're going to put CSS because that's the language that we want to search in. If I click on this one, you'll see it gives me the code I need to do the background color, as well as some other cool stuff, like different ways of writing the background color. You can see on the side here, we've got loads of different properties that you can give your images or your websites. So have a little explanation here and see what you can find. For example, you've got a column width over here for tables, and you've even got a box shadow here if you want to give your web page or your image or your H1 tag a box shadow around it. You can see how this code works by clicking try it yourself. And here you can see what the box shadow looks like. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching.